My grandpa would never go in his attic, would never tell us why. Me and siblings grew up not really questioning it. All of us knew that Pop wouldn't go in the attic. Whenever he needed something from it, we'd go get it for him. Totally normal attic. Never got any spooky vibes from it. Years later, Grandpa died peacefully in his sleep. I go stay with my grandma to keep her company. One night, we're up late talking about old memories. I bring up the attic in a story. Grandma goes really quiet. Asks if anyone ever talked to me about why he wouldn't go up there. Nope.jpg. She tells me that when they first moved into the house, Pop couldn't sleep. He said something about the house just didn't feel right. He paced all night like he was crazy. Went over every inch of the house with a fine-tooth comb. Grandma's really worried but doesn't say anything. One night, he goes up into the attic. She starts hearing him screaming. She sprints up to the attic to find him curled up in a ball. He's sobbing. Grandma asks him what happened. He looks up at her and tells her he figured it out. He points to where the eaves of the roof narrow down towards the far end. She looks. There's nothing there. Then she looks closer and sees something she can't really describe or explain. All she could compare it to is origami. It was like space was folded up on itself. The angles were all wrong. She said that when she looked at it, she could feel herself going crazy, like something inside her was melting. She drags Pop down the stairs and puts him to bed. He sleeps for 2 days. When he wakes up, he says he'll never go into the attic again as long as he lives. Never says another word about it. Ignores Grandma when she brings it up. Grandma goes quiet and I don't say anything. We moved on to other stuff and she hasn't brought it up again since. Turns out most of my family knows. That part of the attic has always been blocked with a huge old bureau. Now I know why. This one is an urban legend me and my friends used to listen to when we were little. Old woman has fruit garden. Lives by herself. Husband died a couple years back. Sons are in another city. Lives beside mountain range. She starts calling the police because aliens come down from the mountain and start eating her fruit. Multiple times. Every time the police arrives, nothing to be found. Fuck it, she's crazy. Ignore her. One night, screaming and noises from her backyard. Neighbors get weirded out. Go to her house, go around the house into her garden. There they found the old lady standing, big stick in hand, literally trying to kill what is described as a weird combination between a praying mantis the size of a big cat and a rat. Nope.jpg. Everyone gets the fuck out. Old woman dragged by force. Police called. Then again, nothing to be found. But this time there are multiple witnesses. Spend the rest of the night in the front yard to see if they catch anything. Old lady doesn't stop saying "I told you" and laughing. Be me, maybe 8 or 9, at my house. It's around 11 or so at night. Getting ready for bed. In the bathroom, brushing my teeth. The door to the bathroom is open since all I needed to do was brush my teeth. While brushing, look around the room out of boredom. Get tired of that, decide to look back at the reflection. Notice something in the mirror I hadn't seen earlier. Since the door was open, you could look into the mirror and see the laundry room. Look a bit closer. Notice something next to the washing machine. Looks like a person dressed in all black. It's a giant dress. Looks similar to a wedding dress. They're standing arms at their side, completely still. Weirdly still, sort of like a mannequin. Their head is facing down, but you can make out a nose and a mouth. Poke my head out of the door to look at it. I was a stupid fucking kid. I have no clue how this didn't make me piss myself. Nothing there. Look at the mirror again. Nothing there. Haven't had a similar experience in that house since. Still don't know what the fuck I saw. I have an uncle who used to live in the Catskills. One time, when I visited his house, he asked me if I wanted to see something freaky. I said sure, so he got in his truck, drove all the way up to the mountains, and pulled into an overgrown path. Right as you pull into it, you can clearly see a burned-down foundation of an old house. It had to have been very old, though, because it looked completely undisturbed. He shut off his truck, and a few seconds after he did, the radio started to pick up. You could just barely hear the voices of people screaming and crying. with the fire burning in the background. It was fucked up. A friend of my dad's would babysit me sometimes when I was little. Mom wasn't in the picture, and he used to tell a story to me that scares the absolute shit out of me to this day. Dad's friend, I'll call him Bob, is driving a rig out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, Oregon. Has to make a delivery by the following morning, so he decides to just drive through the night. It's like 1 a.m. No one else is out on the roads. Hasn't seen another car in probably 100 miles. He's literally in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly the entire sky lights up, instantly like daylight. Bob fucking slams on the brakes. Has no idea what the hell is going on. Everything stays lit up for a good solid 10 seconds. He can see everything. Whatever's happening, it's not lightning. It doesn't stop or flicker at all. Bob hunkers down, anticipating imminent nuclear devastation. Suddenly sky goes dark again. No sound, no blast wave. He sits there in the middle of the road waiting for almost 5 minutes, then decides to keep going. Figures it was just a meteor or something. Goes about 2 miles up the road and sees a car with its flashers on stopped in the middle of the road. Stops a good distance away from it. There's not enough room to go around it. Front end of the car is crumpled like it hit something. Bob figures they probably hit a deer that got spooked whenever the meteor went over and ran into the road. He gets out of the cab and goes to see if the driver is okay. Driver is sitting on the ground by the driver's side door. Has his knees up and is resting his head on his arms. "Hey buddy, you okay?" Bob calls. He stops about 10 feet away for seemingly no reason. Something about the whole situation feels weird. Bob is one of those guys that always listens to his gut, so he stays put.
"God, my head is killing me,"
the guy says, but he doesn't lift his head up so it's muffled. "Did you hit a deer?" Bob asks. He's getting more and more uneasy. Something's wrong. But he still can't figure out exactly what it is. The guy says he thinks he might have hurt his head. Asks Bob to help him. Bob takes a step forward, but his instincts are going apeshit. He looks at everything again. That's when he notices it. The fucking car is all wrong. It looks like what someone thinks a car looks like. It has all the right pieces, but there's nothing extra, if that makes sense. Bob says it looks like a cheap Hot Wheels knockoff. It looked wonky and wrong. He looks around at the back of the car and realizes that not only is there no license plate, there's not even a trunk. It's just one solid piece of material with taillights put in it. There's no manufacturer or model names. Bob knows cars, and this thing is nothing he's ever seen before. From where he's standing, he can see there's no tailpipe or even hubcaps. It's just the shape of a car. He starts to back up, and the guy asks him for help again. Bob tells him he can't help him, and that he'll call a tow truck when he gets to the next town. The guy lifts his head and looks at Bob. Tells him he thinks he might have a concussion. Something is really, really wrong with the guy's face, but it takes a second for Bob to figure it out. The next part is exactly how Bob described it. Everything on the man's face was where it should have been, in their normal positions. He looked totally normal, except for the fact that his eyes and mouth were on upside down. Bob goes apeshit and sprints to the back of his rig, climbs in, locks the door just in time for the man to slam into the door behind him. How the fuck did he get there so fast? He knocks on the glass and smiles at Bob, but because his mouth is upside down, it looks like he's screaming. Tells Bob to open the door so he can come in. Bob fucking floors it. Doesn't care if he hits the guy or not. His truck easily pushes the car out of the way. Whatever it is, it's light and it makes no sound when he hits it. Unfortunately, it's an anticlimactic ending. Bob got where he was going fine, with no other problems. My dad knows about the story, but I don't think he believes it. But Bob tells it to everyone he meets, so he obviously does. He's absolutely adamant about the guy being an alien. Years later, I heard about the Thatcher effect, and nearly had a fucking heart attack when I saw it. I showed one of the pictures to Bob and he wouldn't even look at it. He says it's exactly what the guy looked like. Pick very much related. Be me, be 17 or so, going fishing with my dad in a swampy, marshy area down the river. Up at dawn to paddle down in our old canoe. Dad brings a .22 Winchester level-action rifle just in case. Get there around 8 o'clock or so. Water's only a foot or so deep in some places. Lots of reeds everywhere. At times it gets so dense and the river gets so shallow that you can touch the reeds from the middle of the river. Dad and I are floating in a shaded area that fish love with big willows on both sides of the river. I get a bite. Feels like a big one. About 2 seconds of tension on the line. It goes limp. What? Reeling the line, expecting a broken line or a fish dead from a heart attack. Instead I get a lure and hook that's bit clean in half. What in fuck.ico? I show it to my dad. He thinks it might be a snapping turtle or something. I'm not so sure. Fast forward a couple hours. We don't catch much of anything. This is weird because this is normally a primo fishing spot. You can practically scoop them out of the water. Nothing this time, other than that first bite. Dad decides it's time to go back. We grab our paddles, start back. Almost immediately hit something. Huh, I didn't know there was a rock there. Guess it's lower tide than normal. Push it off and on, I can't reach. Will do, Dad. Go to push off of it with my paddle. Paddle seems to sink in a bit. Manage to get off of it. Glance behind us as we get underway. See a grassy, muddy-looking hump sink into the water. Continue to see the hump out of the corner of my eye most of the way back. Mention it to my dad. He goes pale. Asks me to describe it to him. I do. He immediately paddles straight for shore and pulls the canoe up as well. Shoulders the .22 and starts scanning the water. I'm weirded out. Dad, what's going on? There are some things I'd rather not be in the water with. 5 minutes later. I think it's gone. Slide the canoe back in the water, will ya? Push one end into the water. Grab the end of it to keep it from floating away. Step one of my feet into it, about to throw fishing stuff back in. I hear the sound that's a cross between a crunch and a snapping, grinding noise. Look back. First 6 inches of the canoe is gone. Holy shit. My dad starts screaming, "Get back here and on and get down!" Dive back onto land. Fuck the canoe. Dad fires wildly into the water where the bit of canoe used to be. I guess the thing was almost on the surface because a bit of blood floats up. Doesn't look like fish blood. Looks almost blue or green. Will and on, looks like we're walking home. Son of a bitch. Pick up our stuff and head back. 3/4 of the way there, we come across this inlet stream thing that branches off from the main river. Looks pretty deep. Water itself is only 4 foot wide. Really wide banks. I try to step down onto the bank to jump across. My foot sinks about 2 foot in. God dang. Manage to pull both my foot and shoe out. Looks like we're wading then. Find a piece of bank that isn't soft as fuck. Start wading across. Hump at 3 o'clock. I yell out to my dad. We both start to double time it. Dad starts firing at it. Keeps hitting it. No visible effect. It just speeds up. I manage to get out. Throw our shit on the ground. Pull my dad up behind me. We scramble up off the bank, and Dad keeps firing at the hump. Suddenly it moves forward and up at the bank. Dad starts to run out of ammo. It gets just a little bit out of the water. Looks like a hippo in a ghillie suit. Then it opens its mouth. Fucking row after row of sharp-ass teeth, like a shark. Longer legs, almost looks like croc legs. It roars, hisses, screeches at us, and then sinks back into the water. We made it back home without incident, but we were both shitting our pants. We never went fishing there again, incidentally.